Michael Mirdad. It's time for our program. So thanks for joining us. So today we're going on to Are You Really Too Sensitive? Part 2. Are you really too sensitive? One reason I'm asking is because a lot of us on the spiritual path were probably, and most of the time it's true, we were the black sheep of our family. Not always. Maybe you were stellar, great, well connected with your family. I think it's great. But a lot of times, the majority of the times, we're the black sheep. We're the ones that maybe we're the youngest. Maybe we're the lost child, as some psychologists call it. Maybe we're just the one that didn't quite get it. The one that didn't want to get as addicted as the rest of them if they were addicts. The one that asked more questions. Maybe the one who had their own version of kind of connecting with God. In trouble or something by the other family members' standards, not doing well enough, not being smart enough, not being athletic enough, or whatever. Being gay instead of straight if they were straight. Feeling spiritual rather than Mormon or Catholic or whatever they might have been. We just feel different. Wanting to marry someone we love rather than who they tell us to marry. Just, it looks like we're the renegades, and we are spiritually, but not the renegade who's trying to be a renegade to cause harm to other people, right? So that's one way to know, to know the foundation of becoming too sensitive. The people that are too sensitive often, they might have weight issues, gaining weight, because especially females, because it helps them buffer the stuff of the world. For others, it's, kind of there's a nervous system reaction to these kinds of things. Sometimes we're addicts because we're sensitive. We're not just irresponsible. We're not just weak and addicted, like some people might call an addict. We're actually often, very often, selfish, self-serving, etc., as they say in 12-step programs. But no, guys, sometimes we're so sensitive and our nervous system doesn't know how to deal with this constant stimulus. We're picking up on stuff. A lot of addicts are psychics and they don't know it. So what is this? And so they dig going on trips seeing things because they're feeling those things and they don't know what they are. So it's unconsciously, usually it's unconscious, but unconsciously they're going on trips to see or feel things that they're already sensing are there, and they don't know how to make peace with it or connect with it or find it. What is that thing I'm feeling? So it's quite amazing. I'm not trying to enable or promote addiction, nor am I ever cursing addiction. When I talk about things, I talk about them that they are what they are. I'm never trying to push one thing or another. All right, so some of you were saying, I was talking about it last week, or in the part 1 of this, which is the toll it can take on our nervous system. And not only our nervous system, we have an etheric body around our dense body. And that's like our force field. And so the weight of, or the blow after blow of toxic words and comments, and even physical blows, of course, if we're physically abused, but the constant barrage of this, it's like the Starship Enterprise, and you boom, boom, these lasers or torpedoes or whatever are bombing us, and it wears down our etheric double. Our etheric double will sometimes react by becoming thinner this direction, closer to us. Other times, thinner and thinner in terms of its quality. It doesn't have the density to buffer out garbage, etheric garbage out there in the world, just negative energy. And sometimes actual holes in the etheric double because of the stuff of the world and our addictions and so forth. When you do acid, you go, wow, I'm seeing things. You're actually puncturing holes in your etheric double that's allowing you to see things in the next world, because there's a physical realm, an etheric realm, and an astral realm. So you're seeing through windows of the etheric double into the astral realm going, wow, look at the colors, this is amazing, and what you're actually doing is puncturing holes in your etheric double. So yeah, I'm glad you had a really cool trip and you saw colors. Those colors would be visible to you if only you were evolved enough. But who wants to take time to evolve when you can, drop a little acid, purple haze, and some of the nicknames for the drops. And it's interesting because that song Purple Haze, which people equated with dropping acid, was originally penned. When you see the original lyrics, Jimi Hendrix wrote it was Purple Haze and Jesus Saves, but it was too Christian, he knew, for audiences. So as much as people like to make things conveniently for their little trip that they want to, whatever their thing they want to promote. So I want to do acid, so I'm going to make every song, LSD, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Wow, it was all about LSD. No. Lennon had an abstract kind of a mind, so it sounds like he was writing like that, but it's factually speaking, it was not about that at all. It's just somebody pulls that acronym and go, wow, it's and if you LSD, you could say most of the letters of L, S, and D are somehow filtered into the words, that Paul is dead, back in the days when they were saying that too. So you could, spell it backwards and find a letter that matches, and, it doesn't make it for truth, right? So, Purple Haze, Jesus Saves was what Hendrix said. And the song came from him having a dream of seeing some almost etheric kinds of experiences in a dream. So he was he was coming from I think his mother or his aunt or something was quite strong religious background, and was bringing him up with some bits of that. So he didn't completely lose a memory of that. But the drugs did completely take a toll at some point. They finally took a toll at some point where he was just kind of losing it, and that's what happened. So don't think that doing the drugs that give you an angle of a spiritual / astral experience makes for a righteous decision. It's not at all. You're seeing things that you actually don't realize. You're destroying your brain cells, but also your etheric double. And that's why masters of the Far East would laugh at people that were from the West going to the East saying, wow, look, man, this does all this cool stuff that you guys talk about, except we can do it in seconds instead of taking years. And these guys laughed, and we thought they were ignorant because, they just don't get it. No. The people in the West often are the ones who don't get things and just don't even realize how lost they are by trying to do shortcuts. So that said, so one of you, I know, I think it was actually 2 or 3, asked, so what about this etheric, what about this damage? Can it be repaired? Yes, and how does this relate to being too sensitive? When there's thinness, when there's holes in your etheric double, you're going to be even more. Now you're going to be what I would have to call hypersensitive, because your nerves, your etheric nerves, your etheric senses, your sixth sense, that sort of thing, this is raw. It's like having no skin and having your nerves all exposed. Even air would hurt if you're exposed with no skin, your nerve endings. So you're etherically acting as though there's no buffer. I mean, you're just raw. So you have all these hair-like fiber etheric strands around your body, and they're just getting rubbed up against by entities, by just vibes, energy, or somebody's having a bad day and you're like picking it up and having a meltdown over it. It's like that. It's like, oh my God, and you just feel frantic. So a lot of that frenetic, a lot of that frantic, a lot of that anxiety attack kind of people that are just like shaking inside and out, a lot of that's just this barrage of feelings that come to them. When they take certain medications, they say cause you to shake. You get tremors, like lithium and so forth. It's interesting to me because when I was first observing that clairvoyantly with people and clients and so on, I've got these lithium tremors and whatever, I could tell it's backwards like everything else in this world. You think that the lithium's causing you tremors. The truth is you already have the tremors, and the lithium has thinned out your ability to fend off the tremors. In other words, you're magnifying them by taking the medication. I'm not telling you don't take the medication. I'm just saying it's an amazing thing that the medication is almost sedating your ability to fend off this thing. So it's almost like I'm going to take a deep breath and keep stuffing that down. And the lithium doesn't allow you to do that. It's just causing it. It's actually, in a sense, showing it to you. Take that for what you will. But some of you are asking, can you heal these etheric wounds? Of course, anything can be healed. But will you do what it takes to heal it? And if you heal it, you're going to become less sensitive in a good way. You're going to be less hypersensitive. So it's kind of cool if you think about it. So you look at it and say, well, okay, how do I heal it? Well, will you do what it takes? And you say, sure, really. Well, what if what it takes is having some foods in your diet that are more grounding so that you're not floating and too etheric all the time? Oh, no. I only eat fruits. I like to eat foods that just feel all alive and fresh and whatever. Great. Well, then you don't really want to change this. Go ahead and be hypersensitive and, let every kind of critter out there peck at you like you're a piece of fruit, just acting all fruity on the tree and not grounded. Be like the tree, man. Ground, get in the earth and let your branches, your consciousness, be also out in space, as it were. So will you do what it takes? Some people say, sure, and I give them examples, and oh, no, I can't do that. In a nutshell, I'm only being very brief with this. To counter the hypersensitivity, the word is, the opposite would be grounding. And this world has people very dense, but we have had generation after generation after generation that have been dense. Honestly, with few exceptions, cultures, few exceptions, we have been in a state of density for tens of thousands of years. It's not like 50 years or something, tens of thousands of years. Even in the exception moments, like the Renaissance, people were opening up a bit more. Oh my God, but there was still this stifling, churchy kind of oppression, stifling political oppression. So there was still stuff happening, and a lot of fear in the world coming out of the dark ages and so on. There was still a memory of that, a cellular memory, genetic memory. It was still a little dense, but we've had moments here and there that are a little like the Renaissance, a little more ethereal, which is pretty cool if you think about it. But we are now going in the direction to we're going back home in a sense. So we're peeling off layers of density, and that's helping us return to a state of more etheric, more conscious society. It may not seem like it in the world, and that's because the world's still mostly not. So what's going to happen is we're going to go from density of tens of thousands of years, with some exceptions, major density, where everybody was just, almost like the spiritual consciousness of a rock. And I mean a dense, dull rock. I know that minerals still have consciousness. We're not talking about that. Just density, man. Just like a hammerhead, the head of a hammer. So it's changing, and we're going from that to now more etheric, and we need to go more etheric. So we were over here, and we need to go more etheric. The downside is that we tend to swing on a pendulum on Earth. So we've done this, and now it's a lot of people are swinging the opposite directions, which is why sexual abuse, for example, has become rampant, especially for children. Sexual abuse, abuses towards women, and so forth. National abuses to other nations and all that. It's because we've swung from the victimizer's density, hyper masculine, hyper left brain. What would you like instead? Oh, let's have the opposite. So swing the pendulum to the opposite. It's not good, because you're creating a lot of not just the oppressive victimizers, you're swinging to the side where there's more and more ethereal people, almost tempting victimizers to even become more predatorial. I know this may sound strange, but what we need is the center, the balance. So we won't spend tens of thousands of years swinging the hyper opposite, because it'll never happen that we go all the way to what people are waiting for. Just this really wonderful, poetic civilization. we all just kind of sit around, with flowers in our hair and breathe, nobody, does anything anymore. No, that would be a hyper opposite. A lot of us have gone that way. And when we started birthing around the year 1960, that generation, Edgar Cayce would call it 1958. So I'm not just coming up with a number of my own, but around the year 1960, there started being born, which is why you saw the flower power in the 60s and all that. You started seeing born a new race, what some people could say are the indigos. And so what I mean by hyper extreme is everybody sits around now going, oh, isn't it amazing, indigos and indigo children. We're the ones that are the indigos. We started it. We're the first indigos, and the generations now being born are the children of the indigos, and so they are also indigos, of course. But what we don't want to do is have this demand, this request, this calling for a hyper extreme of indigos coming into a world that doesn't accept them and harms them. What we want is to create a world, by creating different selves, create a world that kind of is a healthy receptacle for balanced individuals. So it's kind of like, indigos have their place, but man, this world isn't totally ready to accept that and have that extreme. The indigos are mirroring to us another extreme. It's almost like saying, at one end of the pendulum you have red as a color. Indigo is when you swing a little more the other direction. And so red has been almost the coloration that the human race has been at for tens of thousands of years. We swung way over to indigo, and it's going to be like, no, wait a minute. Back it off a little, bring it down a few color, notches to, let's say, green. And green would be a balance between those two. Green would be the heart chakra, not way up at the crown, not way at the root, but a heart balance. And that's where we're going to be able to bridge. Because if we all go to indigo, the reds are going to fight us and try to stomp on us. And that's why you're seeing a reaction. The reds, I just made this up, but the reds are, what is this thing going on? And the reds look for, how can we profit from this? We don't care if you're indigo. We don't care what you call yourselves. We don't care what race you are. We don't care what gender you are. We don't care your beliefs, your religion, whatever, spiritual and ideals. We don't care. All we think about is how we will profit from this new thing, this new thought, this new whatever. They even release, headlines in magazines and newspapers for people to read, that they want them to read because they're telling you the future, because they're already making it happen by creating a headline. You should be afraid of this, or the trend is going to go this way. It's just the strangest thing. There's a new trend coming. Bathroom fixtures all have to be now, they have to be, nickel, pewter colored, and then you go and take your hard-earned money, you buy all those things, and then you're going to sell your house and they say, oh, you have all the wrong fixtures because that's not in anymore. What do you mean? Like, you're lucky to have plumbing. Why do I have to have colors you like? So that's kind of the way the world is predatorial towards, people that get extreme. I'm teaching balance. We have to find balance. So people ask, can you heal these wounds, these, and that's what they are, these etheric holes and thinness and all that. As you heal spiritually, two things, healing and learning. As you heal your physical and emotional self, the physical self reflects even my physical drug use, but also my physical accidents, traumas are reflecting in my etheric double. My emotional state, the emotions coming at me and my own emotions will reflect in that etheric double as well. So do my thoughts. So my etheric double can heal, but can be repaired, reversed, but it would involve healing and also learning to become more spiritual, learning to become what God created me to be. If all I do is heal, that's going to help. But that's almost like it'll help from a lower body, lower chakras, lower consciousness. Not bad lower, just a lower level of consciousness. When you do your learning, your spiritual learning, your prayers, meditations, oneness with God, Course in Miracles, workbook lessons, whatever you're into, when you do your spiritual work, you're bringing in the higher colorations, the higher components, the higher consciousness. That gives you an etheric double that's like, it's not only just repaired, bandaged, it's now fully coming forward to a new self. Almost like being born again to a new level. Instead of just not wounded, you're actually rising to new levels. So yes, it can be healed. Are you willing to do what it's going to take? Do your spiritual work. Trust God's going to take care of it, and the Holy Spirit, is going to, the Divine Mother, she's going to take care of you. She's like the Mother Earth. The Divine Mother is going to hold you and nurture you and help repair things at a pace that you can accept. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you have to be able to accept it. She'll just do as much as she can do at any given time. Sometimes it's dramatic, overnight, instantaneous healing, and other times it's little bits at a time, depending on what we can handle. You would think, well, I would like it all now. Not all healing can happen now because you're so raw. It's kind of like grafting skin when you've been burned severely. Why don't they just do it all at once? No, man. You could go into shock and die. Healing can kill you. In other words, you wouldn't think so. And so, in A Course in Miracles, we read that the Holy Spirit will not bring you healing of anything that would in any way cause you a problem, cause you fear, cause you fear in any form, cause you hesitation, cause you hyper reactions or whatever. So adverse reactions or anything else. So it takes time. And for some of us, it can be like, wow, I just was lit up overnight and I just feel the presence of God. There are times when I've seen people that I've worked on who we ramp it up. I can help them. I can do some work on them. And they're, let's say on a 0 to 10 scale, their etheric body is like a 2. I do some work on them and it's like a 7. They feel it, I see it, I feel it, I sense it, and so on. It's like really obvious. And then they go and could do something that could drop it back to, let's say, a 3. You would hope not, you would think not, but it can happen. They could go and get in a severe argument with somebody. They could go and party. They could go and work too hard. They go out, let's say, and work in a yard, out in their yard in the sun, and get exhausted and kind of just drained. That's not healthy because your new 7 level is you're still on the mends, and you've gone and you pushed yourself too far. So now, back down to a 3 maybe. So things like that. You got to be responsible when you're working on this. And again, how does this play into sensitivity? Well, because my own sensitivities are made hyper because of my wounds. So healing my wounds is going to mend my etheric body, and then I won't be so what we call hypersensitive. I remember people have said this before, and one of you posted, I think, that I saw after the filming of this, the last week one, the part 1. Somebody said, I'm not sure if it's healthy or I'm not sure why I do it, but when I get really upset, like angry, I cry. It's an amazing thing because what's happening is you're so thin in your etheric double that no sooner does one emotion come in, so does another, because they're not, let's call it compartmentalized. They're not clear in your mind. So all of a sudden, what am I feeling? I'm really angry and I'm crying. Why am I crying? I'm crying because I'm sad that I'm angry, but I'm also scared. So you think you're crying because you're angry, this one person was saying. You're crying not because you're angry, you're also crying because you're scared. You're sad that you're angry, perhaps, yes, but you're also scared. When you got angry, you started feeling like you're losing control. And when you started losing control, you started feeling some of the things your predators or your abusers ever have felt when they treated you the way they did. So now, oh my God, I'm scared. And then you start to feel an anxiety and an anxiousness, and and then you start crying because you're nervous. I hope that makes sense to the people that were asking a little bit about that, but it's a collision of emotions. Now, when your etheric body is healthy, you can kind of, oh, what's this coming in? Oh, a feeling of this. What's this coming out? An emotion of that. You have time to filter it. I always thought of the etheric double, ever since I was a kid seeing it, I always thought of it for some reason as like gauze, like layers of gauze that filters debris and dirt and so forth that we don't want into our inner self. So to speak, we would become infected. So it's kind of like that. It's cotton, or perhaps you could think of it as cotton. Something like that filters out stuff, and it very much is a filter. But if it's plugged up, clogged up, ripped, torn, it's hard to tell anymore whether I'm coming or going. One thing that people say quite often in the spiritual community, how do I know when emotions are mine or someone else's? Well, no matter which one it is, if it's something you're feeling, it's still in you. You still feel it. So when you say someone else is sad, but I'm not, someone else is angry, but it's not me, I'm picking up their emotions, you couldn't if it didn't have some Velcro to stick to. So, you could say, well, I'm not like them at all. You don't have to be exactly like them, but you could have a button that they can push related to that particular emotion. And when your etheric body isn't healthy, which reminds us that we're kind of weak in some areas, then that's getting in. Like you could have a great immunity. Somebody has a cold, you don't pick it up. Your immunity's down, you picked it up. How? They gave me a cold. No. Your immunity was down. Why was your immunity down? Well, they shouldn't have given me a cold. They shouldn't have come to work when they had a cold or a flu. And so, no, guys, I understand you could use that argument. But guys, no. Also, why was your immunity down? Well, that's not my fault. I can't control that. Yes, you can. You control your immunity by having an alkaline diet and system. Not just the diet, a system. Well, how are they different? Because you could have alkaline diet like foods, but you could also have an acidic system because you eat alkaline foods, but you're constantly anxious, angry, upset, scared, whatever. Your food keeps turning to acid and then making your blood turn acidic. So alkaline foods create an immunity. That will help your etheric body. Grounding more often, that will help your etheric body. Another thing that helps, healing old wounds, of course. That's going to help heal and strengthen your etheric body. Spiritual work is going to strengthen your etheric body. But one of the ones that most intimidates people when I recommend what'll help them is when you get in your body and you find the spiritual warrior. The armor of the Lord, which is your etheric body, in some levels of interpretation. It's your etheric body. And the armor of the Lord comes from connection with the Lord, God, in your heart and soul. But that armor, it's referred to as armor because it does imply a warrior. The warrior in you needs armor. Armor simply meaning healthy ability to fend off stuff. Because armor isn't necessarily your weapon. It's simply to fend off stuff. It's your ability to say, wait a minute, breathe. No, not today, man. No, thank you. They try to strike. It doesn't go anywhere. You have this armor. And the armor is your etheric double, able to fend off, stuff of this world, stuff that kind of, otherwise seems to affect you, affect us. And again, it could be emotion, it could be astral stuff even. Believe it or not, even entities. I remember times in my life where people have asked me to go and do a house clearing, like a house blessing, when there in fact was definitely entities and so on. And, when I do that, it's not that I'm boasting. I'm saying this is kind of how it has to be done. You have to have that backbone. If you go in to do an exorcism on a home or a person, and you walk in going, hi, how are we all doing? Oh my God, entities are like, oh, this is going to be good, man. This isn't even just fruit that's crunchy. This is soft, juicy fruit, man. This is great. We're just going to devour this person. That's not how you do these things. And I want to add, I'm not telling you too sensitive means you need to harden yourself. I'm saying balance. So if you're too hard, which people believe they needed to be for thousands of years, so be it. Some exceptions, of course. There's too soft. And a lot of it, we're seeing a lot of that in the world today. Vulnerable, susceptible, naive folks that, have taken it too far. And I'm not saying, it's a funny thing because the word innocence means I'm in touch with my God self. We think innocence is a weakness, like, oh, they're so innocent, they're so easily harmed. When you know your spiritual innocence, it means free of guilt, shame, fear, doubt. That's what it means. Innocent, not naive and vulnerable in a negative way. It means I'm innocent, therefore I'm invulnerable. I'm totally not susceptible to any garbage of this world because I'm so clear about who I am. Nothing can affect me. And that's what we're heading for. That's what we're looking for. That's what true balance is. That a balance of the masculine and the feminine, at the same time. People have asked me, about my own work and sensitivity level. And I would have to say, I doubt that anybody really knows. Maybe nobody that's ever even known me really knows my level of sensitivity. I hint about it here and there. I share when it's relevant, but here I'm telling you balance. Guys, I was born sensitive, and I certainly took hits for it, literally and figuratively took hits for it. But I chose not to harden the other extreme, to harden. But I also didn't stay just hypersensitive. I accessed the warrior within. I healed wounds. I called upon God's presence, and that's how it worked for me. So when I go in and do these exorcisms and things I've done, I go in with that center. You go in with certainty. If you have any doubts at all, don't go in. If you're a surgeon and you have doubts, don't you dare cut into me and think about whether you're in the right space or not. You want a master. You want somebody who says, got it. We got it covered. You want, there's an old story of a football reference, and the professional football. The guy, Joe Montana, he's been in the Super Bowl. I think he went 4 times, won every time. And I think he even, which is like never been done, never even thrown an interception. I think maybe in a Super Bowl or a playoff game. The guy was really masterful. But my point, because I like to hear and learn about people. I don't care, sports or whatever. I'm not really that into. But I like people that are masters. And when I heard they call him Joe Cool, Joe Montana, Joe Cool, because his first time in the Super Bowl, it's like, there was one time when he won the playoff game to go to the Super Bowl, he beat the Dallas Cowboys, and it was like, wow, because they had been kind of in and out of the playoffs for several years, so they had a good reputation for being at least contenders. I think they only by this time won a couple of times, but they were contenders. He beats them. And yet, when he throws this final pass to beat them, they can't believe it. They're so kind of overly confident. Well, how dare you beat us? So one of them comes up to him and says, well, you just beat America's team. Montana turns to him and says, well, you and the rest of America can stay home in a couple of weeks and watch the Super Bowl that I'll be in. And it's just cool. Like putting people and situations in their place. No hatred. You just know how to hold your space, your center. And you and I have to learn to do that. Oh, it's so intense. No, guys. I don't want you at all to become hateful and hurtful. Like I want to one-up you with rude comments. Not at all. Just not letting people's stuff get through to you. So he goes on to the Super Bowl that year, and as the story goes, they're down to the last minute of the game, and they're behind. They need a touchdown in a matter of a minute. It's that doesn't happen very easily. And in a Super Bowl, you're playing against typically a really good team, so that you don't usually just decide we're going to go get touchdown and get one. So they're going to march up the field, and they've got 80, 90 yards to go or whatever it is. And his team members, they all get in the huddle, and they're going like the nervousness. Your kids will have that sometimes. Your partner will have that. Some of your employees will have that if you're an employer. Your clients, if you're a counselor, they're going to come to you with that. What do we do? And these guys get in the huddle and they're going, oh man, what are we going to do? Joe Montana says to them, hey, do you see who's here? They're like, what? Did you see who's in the audience? And he mentions the name of an actor, comedian actor. I won't say the name, but he points him out. Hey, did you guys look? He's over there. And they're like, what? And they're turning around. Look, are you serious? Dude, we have to hike the ball within a few seconds because we're already in the huddle too long. And we're in the Super Bowl and we're about to lose and we need to go, must get a touchdown. And you're actually doing, little shots of the audience. And that's how cool he was. And when he did that, they went, man, we are in good hands. Man, we feel it. Now listen to this carefully. When you hold an energy and your etheric body is full and you're like, I got it. I'm charged. I'm alive. And you deliver whatever it is. I don't care if it's you're delivering milk, whatever you deliver, they can sense that you know what you're doing. Yes, confidence is contagious, but people say that they're thinking it means more like your external confidence. They don't understand, guys. My energy, if I'm holding enough confidence, will shine through my etheric double onto that of others, into the astral body and etheric body, and then the internal consciousness of another person. They pick that up. So instead of them being hypersensitive, oh my God, what are we going to do? Or the opposite, overly arrogant or overly hardened. It's this beautiful light of God that can penetrate things if we let it, if we let that be. It's almost like it's the color on a bird, the scent of a rose. It's just this natural emanation that's just beautiful. It is what it is. I am as God created me. And it's just this very natural energy. So you go into something like whether it's a surgery or you're a counselor and somebody tells you some horrific history, instead of like, oh my God, that's terrible, I don't want to hear anymore. You've just scared them because you don't want to hear anymore. Like they overwhelmed you. They're counting on you. The surgeon who looks at you in an emergency room after an accident and they go, geez, you wouldn't want that. Okay, we're on it. Military operations. God, if you're, captains, lieutenants, and whomever else were nervous going, well, guys, and it's not good. Probably not going to do very well in this battle, but let's just give it a shot. It's not sounding good. So whatever metaphor feels right for you, I don't care what it is. When you have an art instructor and they say, I think you can do it, go ahead and try it. Just do something. Good. You look at what you did. You captured this. Now let's work on that more. They don't talk about what you suck at. And if they do, they're not actually teachers. They're linear thinkers. So you want that love, that compassion to be able to come through. And those of you who have had people that push you, the proverbial dad watching over your shoulder, the nagging mom, narcissistic mother, whatever, if you've had those, that is, I'm just using examples. The boss, it's never enough. Oh, yeah, you got 5 more sales this week, but we want you to get 10 next week. Well, wait, nobody's even had 5 in a week. Yeah, that's great. Let's get 10 next. They don't acknowledge care, I know that's hard. Your job is to find yourself, not to keep reacting to what they don't find in you, but instead find yourself. And this is really in every fable, in every mythology that has had to do with a hero or heroine, but a hero's journey. It's always been about our own finding ourselves, our own sense of balance. So as I'm going to start coming to a close, one of my last thoughts is I don't think people really know my sensitivity level. So I'm going to share that, in case it works for you or is important to you. It's to kind of give you an example of when I sit here and you go, okay, yeah, he's talking about balance and Michael usually seems pretty confident. Yeah, it's great. But I'm not coming from hardened and just becoming a little bit spiritual. There are people like that. I was really messed up and now I've gotten a little bit spiritual. I'm not one of those, which I'm glad that they did become a little spiritual. I was really a lot more sensitive and have balanced coming back the other way. How sensitive and does sensitivity have its perks? Absolutely. When I sit down to do a talk, I don't have to think and make a talk. All I need to do is open my mind and it starts coming. And a lot of people say, how does he know to say exactly? I mean, Michael made up this bizarre example, and it was, I mean, like I could use some arbitrary thing, and somebody will say, well, wait a minute, wait, that's too weird because that's exactly what happened. There was this, bright red, dragonfly on a beautiful green leaf, and the color contrast was amazing. Wait a minute. Most states don't even have red dragonflies. So he brings up some arbitrary thing like that, and it just happened yesterday. That happens a lot in what I do. Why? Oh, because I'm brilliant. And no, it's our ability to say, not, less of me and more of thee. And for me, when you write a book, even if God's channeling through you, he comes through your filters. In other words, when I'm starting to share with you, it's still my hands moving. It's still my eyes looking at you. It's still me. And I like metaphors, so God comes through me, and I sort of filter the information. It just filters through, not in my head. It just happens naturally that I start using an analogy, a metaphor. And which ones I use, how do I know which ones I'm going to use? I don't. They just pop out. But how and why? Because I'm so sensitive, I can actually feel what you're feeling, even though these are remotely done. Do I know exactly what person? Sometimes. Sometimes it'll pop into my head which one of your little faces that I see on the screen, who it was. But I never think about it, and I never analyze it. I don't sit and go, probably them. I wonder what they're going through. It's not like that. It's just all constant and spontaneous. I'm saying all this for a reason. Because my sensitivity level, it could be like when I write an email, or if I'm responding to some question, or whatever it happens to be, when I go to respond to a question, like if I'm doing a lecture somewhere, when I go to respond, usually people are linear. They answer the way they want to answer your question as though you're a separate person. When I answer, my mind becomes aware of all of your responses to my answer at the same time as I'm also filtering the answer. I'm starting to become aware of your feelings to my response, my answer, which parts of it connect, which parts are scaring you. And then all of a sudden, I'm also aware of the people, other people in the room, or other people online. These things just start, coming. And honestly, it can feel like a barrage. If I slow down enough and become dense enough, then think enough. As soon as you start slipping into the human thinker, then it would be overwhelming, hyperstimulating. And even now, it can still be a little bit. I do these talks, and sometimes, wow, afterwards, the Sunday services or these talks, people just think I'm just sitting and talking. It's like taking off the skin and being all open. But the good news is, it allows God so much more room to move through me because I'm going, let's go. Well, Michael, should we keep it to this? No, here I am. Use me. God's like, wow. Okay, so in comes this comment, in comes that, and the feelings, and so it's an interesting thing because in becoming such a broad channel, it can be a bit overwhelming. And it's really interesting because, and so I'm just kind of blurting out all this personal stuff now, but it's really interesting because my ability to be a warrior and ground is partly what keeps me sane. If I let go of my anchor, grounding, warrior kind of energy, which is half me, as the other half is the sensitive side, if I were to let that go, I don't think I could survive. I really don't think I would survive very long at all, you know. Even as a kid, hearing these things and feeling these things and sensing these things. You know, Edgar Cayce was an incredible channel, total clairvoyant. But his reason for being a chain smoker was because it was his way of dealing with the nervousness of being such an open channel. So that's one quick example. And, you know, at the same time, when he would be done with his readings, instantly, I mean, he immediately would ask for something to eat, usually a grain of bread, because it's got a density to it. He needed to ground afterwards. So a little bit of bread and something to drink, and it would kind of ground him. So what grounds you? You know, find something that can help you just find an equilibrium. I know that there are some people that have been around me watching this, theorizing, I wonder what's going on with him, you know, and they analyze sometimes. When they analyze, they're going to almost always be wrong, even if they're friends, theorizing what goes on inside of me at any given moment. This hypersensitivity can also manifest as impatience, not just being an impatient jerk kind of a thing, but an impatience inside of, if somebody asks me a question and they ask 5 different times, it can be an agitation to the nervous system to have to answer 5 times because I'm already going somewhere else. I'm already moving on, and we're going back here. That's how sensitive your system can become. For you, it could be the noise of your children. You love, love, love them, but the noise can be a lot for you. Find some grounding so that you don't take it out on them. There are so many examples I could give that would, I think would blow your mind if I, explained what it looks like to be in that level of sensitivity. It can be like people have said, you know, Michael, I notice your hands, you know, they move as you're talking. And I think a lot of people have said, and when I do these Friday nights, you don't see them as much. They're down here, so you just see the upper body moving. I noticed that when I watch some of the videos. But my hands, you know, often do things. And I've heard people, I think it's theorizing this or that or the other. I wonder if it's cultural. I wonder if it's this, or you're just very expressive. The bottom line is it's like body mandalas, body mudras. They're sacred geometries, but I don't think about them. But they're doing something to balance everything I'm saying. Just like I make a joke now and again. And not because I think of it. It just comes out. And I learned years and years ago that even a little bit of a joke was all about balancing. Because I'm talking and talking, people are like, getting like, whoa. They start to lean forward going, man, this is deep. Wow, this is amazing. And their mind's getting engaged and they're leaning forward. And then there's a part of me, I realized that years ago, that comes in and snips all the cords they're starting to put into me going, tell us more, you know, master or whatever, you know, tell us more. The joke comes in and snips the cords so they can breathe and I can let them be empowered. Did you get what I said? Did you get it? Don't lean in anymore. Did you get it? Oh, and they laugh and they don't realize because people are not sensitive enough. A lot of people are not tuned into themselves enough. They might be hypersensitive energetically. They're not tuned into themselves enough to realize what happened. Snip, bounced back in yourself, and instead they just go, oh, you know, that was funny. And they end up almost forgetting the depth they were at a moment ago. Where in fact, what I'm doing energetically, they might think they forgot. It absorbed at a deeper level, but it would help them even more if they would have the laughter and let the laughter become a joyousness and let the joyousness become this is a holy moment. God, I'm hearing things that, yeah, we were in and then we laughed, but oh my God, you know, it's like you would hear the angels. When Jesus is born, the angels, you could hear the vibrations in the ethers, you know, peace on earth and goodwill to man. That's what you would hear if you would really hear something I'm saying, and then I crack a joke, we laugh. The laughter is the joy of the Christ child being born in you and or in me anytime we allow ourselves to go to deeper levels of consciousness, deeper levels of healing, deeper levels of growth in any way. But I can just sense these things in people. And so I'm doing a talk, I'm writing an email. It's so interesting because it involves, like when I've written books, people will say, God, I really love this part or that part. When I'm writing it, it's very simple, but it's tuning into God, letting God channel through me, and then letting me match in me myself, letting the me match you. God, self, and others. Those are the three relationships of the universe. So God, me, so God's consciousness comes through me as a filter, as a channel, but it doesn't just preach to you. What I do is, as it's coming out of me, I ask myself, it's all simultaneous, how do they need to hear this? What wording? How I'm actually able to see the readers 5 years later, the readers going, wow, wow, that's pretty amazing. And that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of a drag because you guys and myself, when we also have sensitivities, yours may not be as extreme as mine, or maybe it's more. I'm not going to say one way or the other, it doesn't matter. But when we have these kinds of emotion, this emotional connection, it also means that when people are being pissy and not liking us and judging, and that can be a little much. It can be a little, I've had it happen where I go in a restaurant and somebody that feels like competitive, they're mad because my books sell more than theirs, or my classroom is filled with more people, than whatever, and there's such hatred. And I don't take it on, thank God, but I can become sad just at the fact that anybody hates. I don't need to become sad. That's something that I'm healing and healing and healing, over time, because I don't need to get worried, caught up in their trip about being sad, about being angry at me, rather. So it's lessened a lot every year that I've grown on this planet. But it's rooted always in wounds. If you're going to feel something, there's a button that they're pushing. So what button are they pushing? You could say I have nothing to do with their issues. Guys, that's not the best way to heal the things. Brushing them off could fend it off for today. When you say, well, it's not my issue. Healing it will heal it forever. And so when I was a kid, I sat around wondering, why do my family members not like me, And then that went out of the house to school. Any bullies or any, what is that about? Instead of just being sad or scared, instead of just being scared of people like that, I was like bewildered, like, wow, what is this? What is the problem? And then taking that with me. And I would say probably years ago, maybe 10 years ago, another level of that really shifted for me. But it's still there, and I'm glad. I'm glad that you have a conscience, that I have a conscience. I'm glad that you sometimes pick stuff up of people, even if it makes you sad or whatever, because I'd rather you and I be able to feel than to not feel, because that's what a lot of people do as an alternative. They shut down. Yeah, it's a drag sometimes to feel too much. It'll affect, for some, it could be a headache. You take on headache, your head responds. You're not taking on a headache, but your head is building up an energy. It becomes headaches because you're taking up so toxic energy around you, too much of it. Or it could be allergies, allergic reactions, or it could be just depletion of energy. We can be fed, but you have to shift your consciousness. And this world, man, it's really a lot. Anytime you're a public figure, you have a group of people liking you and a group of people hating you. And my attitude was always like, but what a bummer. I mean, I don't dislike you. I don't even know you. There's people I don't even know that dislike me. And I think, what a bummer. What a sad kind of a thing. And that's partly that little boy in me, and partly that spiritual, sensitive soul. But we can't fix them all. No matter what you say or do, they don't want to be healed or fixed. They want to hate you because they hate themselves. So you can't fix all that. But I just know that I love being alive, and there's people that don't want us to feel alive because they don't, and whether it's been strangers or friends that I've seen that hate or are competitive or turn on us or whatever. There's a time in the past where I would have went, oh man, what a bummer. But once I learned to see through, if they want to hate, they're going to hate. If they want to compete, they're going to compete. If they want to be jealous, they're going to be jealous. Part of me still says, but that's such a bummer. And part of me says, okay, whatever. And I move forward. So I totally own all the great qualities of being sensitive. I mean, it makes me who I am. Like I said, Casey would compensate and have to have a little bread or something to ground him after, whatever. And I have my kinds of things, whatever they happen to be. I don't have any, chemical addictions and things like that or whatever to try to ground or compensate. I don't drink. There's nothing like that. I'm not an overeater, anything like that. But the most common thing for me would be that I've always liked to, I guess it would be to chill. It's kind of like a great conference. I go and speak at a conference. The vibes are high. Everybody's like, "Wow, that was amazing!" Sign autographs. I could do things for 72 hours straight, 500 hours straight. I could probably do it without sleeping. I know how to just be in the light and do the energy. When I'm done, sometimes I like to decompress. I think that this is the most common thing I've ever noticed about myself when it comes to what is my response after a really high energy. Decompress. Be with a few people that are somewhat trustworthy, and some of them turn out not to be, and then I say goodbye. But people that are going to be honest, people that I can relax and just kind of hang out, laugh a little bit, maybe have something to eat. Because to me, it's my way of grounding, not just the food, but grounding the friendships, the safety. It could be like sitting back and just, so how you guys doing? And it's kind of like that. When that energy can't be met, my request, my need, whatever you would want to call it, and you got to look for yours. You really, really advise you to look for your sensitivities and your needs to counter it. And if you don't meet those needs, it's going to tax you until you go over the edge. So I recommend you find what works for you. It could be like, I remember a period where a friend of mine at the time who was strong enough, they loved, I remember this guy that I hung out with way back the 90s. He was strong, and he would say he loved doing foot reflexology. Oh my God, that was great. And then he would just work the feet. I'm like, just float, man. Loved it. No matter how hard he worked, I just float. And I've had things like that done here and there in my life. Or sometimes it's hanging out and decompressing. The downside, and you got to watch for if there's a downside for you. When you find your way to ground, to decompress, or to balance an extreme emotional situation or vulnerability or sensitivity. You do psychic readings for several in a day and you're feeling a little like vulnerable. You better do something. Oh, well, I'll smudge. Smudging is nice. That's not what I'm talking about. Do something else that brings you back, A, to earth and ground, and B, to God in center. Find something that does that for you. Both the spiritual centering, the earth centering. And that's what it was for me, the feet getting done and then just spiritually reconnecting. And also the friendships where I could, at one time, it was really quite beautiful for years of my life. Every so often cycles where there would be friends I could kind of count on. If my sitting down and decompressing and say that was really great, sometimes I'll say irreverent things just to decompress an energy. I might say something like, oh, my fans really love me today, or something, just being silly. And we all laugh. And do I mean it in that way? Of course not. But if I had my microphone on And it was still turned on. And over the PA system, somebody heard me say some of the things I say once in a while. Oh, my fans, they'd be like, what a jerk. So when I decompress and let my hair down, so to speak, it's nice when the people in the room are okay with that. They can handle that. It's always a drag when either A, they can't handle it, they didn't understand it, and they get weird about it and freak out like, oh, he's a jerk. Or it's not just when they can't handle it, it's when they take those moments, those private moments, those deep, connecting moments, and whatever, and break confidentiality, and that sort of thing, or practice dishonesties, and that. What a drag, what a drag. We're doing all this great work of just like a little sanity, a few safe friends, clear, and then they blow it, and that's just like, oh, geez, forget it. So watch for what works for you. You must discover your medicine after those moments of working yourself. It could even be quiet, isolated, private, alone, quiet, hot tub, whatever it's going to be. I can only tell you that I feel very good with who I am, evolved to a degree. I'm not boasting, I'm saying in consciousness, and still I need to know what I need in any given moment. And as much as I know grounding and balance and whatever, oh my God, you guys have no idea of just how sensitive I am and my systems are to pick up thoughts and feelings all the time, but not in a freaky way, but in a way that is so well orchestrated by the Holy Spirit, the Divine Mother, just the right information, but it's wider, deeper, broader, higher than anybody I've ever known to deal with this sort of thing. It's not a boast, because I'm saying this is God that's capable. If it were up to me, I'm sure I would explode, in seconds or minutes of my, as soon as it weren't there from the Holy Spirit anymore. And no human, I think, can endure the things that happen in and around me. So, sometimes it's like nice to know, guys. It's just imperative to know. It's just so nice to know what you need for your grounding. I hope it's not unhealthy things, because those are not actually helping you. Grounding and centering, healing and learning. Healing that brings you grounding, learning that brings you centered in God. That's what to watch for. That's a bit of your solution to any of this that might seem a little extreme. If you struggle and you find yourself real sensitive, be careful not to do more as much as be more. Go inside and do some more work. Don't keep doing work if you're already too sensitive. Have some breathing time. Take time off work if work is too extreme, if you can take time off. Don't go after that one more sale if you're already at your end, your edge, of your balance. Don't allow one more emotional outburst with somebody if you're already bordering a cold or a flu or any other more extreme illness. Find what you need to maintain your balance so that your roots are there strongly enough to where the rest of you can come out and grow. When you're new, you're like a new plant. It takes a year or two, and all of a sudden the roots go, okay, seems safe enough. Boom, and they start taking off. That's what happens in us. You need some time for the foundation to feel good and strong enough. Your soul is saying, hey, we don't want to give you too much. And you say, oh, it's not too much, but then you physically and emotionally have breakdowns. The soul's like, all right, that's it. We're not going to let you grow anymore. We're not going to let you, see more poems in the ethers, art in the ethers, love in the ethers, channeling of God. You can't even get through a day. You got to show it. You got to say, I'm here. Give me a minute. Just do your grounding, show you're strong, show you're clear, and persistently so, consistently so that more can come to you. Be faithful with what you've got, and then more will be given. But be faithful. Take good care of what you've got. All right? Thank you. This has felt really good. It's just I could just, wow, there's so much to share. But I think, at least you have a bit of an idea of what this looks like on a deeper level. And God will take care of you, but you got to also do your part. You're welcome to join us anytime for these Friday talks. These Fridays are usually about an hour, maybe 45 minutes if I can keep it to that, but 45 minutes to an hour, and it's around 5:30 Arizona time, which is sometimes Pacific and sometimes it's Mountain time. Sundays it's 10 o'clock, 10:15. We do our sacred services from Unity of Sedona, so you can join us there if you like. So God bless you all. Thank you for your time. I wish you many blessings. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.